Hello, my friends. What a cruddy day out there weather-wise, right? I think a pretty good day overall. Got some interesting news to report tonight, but woke up and it was raining like crazy. And I was like, but you know what? I'd exercised like 6 or 7 days straight. And I was like, all right, well, maybe I'll take today and not get outside. And I didn't walk today, but I got a lot of stuff done around the house. And I got a lot of stuff done. My son wanted to go for a bike ride with his friends. And so we did some work to get his bike, cleaned up and things adjusted and handlebars adjusted and get the tires pumped up and stuff. So it was an active day. But anyway, I'm glad to be here with you tonight. Second night of reading our new book, and I'm pumped. We got 4 chapters. Even though we're on chapter 4, we read the preface and then 3 full chapters. So we're on chapter 4. And what does he call himself now? John Smith, right? A very creative name that our alien, right? He's an alien, has taken. And they've moved to Paradise, Ohio, right? These bad aliens are chasing them around, and they've got to continue to move. We know that they have to be killed in order. 1 was killed, 2 was killed. Then he was hanging out with his friends on a pontoon boat. 3 had been killed, and his foot was in the water, and the water started to boil and everything, right? Because the scar burns on his leg. But now he's number 4. So now he knows that they're coming after him. All right. So another new identity, another new school. I've lost track of how many there have been over the years. 15, 20, always a small town, a small school, always the same routine. The new students draw attention. Sometimes I question our strategy of sticking to the small towns because it's hard, almost impossible, to go unnoticed. But I know Henry's rationale. It's impossible for them all to go unnoticed as well. The school is 3 miles from our house, and Henry drives me in the morning. It's smaller than most of the other schools I've attended, and it's unimpressive looking. 1 story, low, and low slung. A mural of a pirate with a knife between his teeth covers the outside wall beside the front door. So you're a pirate now, Henry says. Besides me? It looks like it, I reply. You know the drill, he says. This ain't my first rodeo. Don't show your intelligence. It'll make them resent you. Wouldn't dream of it. Don't stand out or draw too much attention. Just a fly on the wall, that's what I'll be. And don't hurt anybody. You're far stronger than they are. I know. Most importantly, always be ready to leave at a moment's notice. What's in your backpack? 5 days worth of dried fruits and nuts, spare socks, thermal underwear, rain jacket, a handheld GPS, a knife disguised as a pen. On you at all times. He takes a deep breath and keeps an eye out for his signs. Your legacies are going to appear any day now. Hide them at all costs and call me immediately. I know, Henry. Any day, John, he reiterates. If your fingers start to disappear, or if you start to float, or shake violently, if you lose muscular control, or begin to hear voices even when nobody is talking, anything at all, you call. I pat my bag. Got my phone right here. I'll be waiting for you here after school. Good luck in there, kiddo, he says. I smile at him. He is 50 years old, which means he was 40 when we arrived. Being his age made for a harder transition. He still speaks with a strong Lorik accent that is often mistaken for French. It was a good alibi in the beginning, so we named himself Henry, spelled Henri, like French Canadians or Parisian French. That's how they spell it. And it's stuck. He has stuck with it ever since, just changing his last name to match mine. Off I go to rule the school, I say. Be good, says Henry. I walk towards the building. As in the case with most high schools, there are crowds of kids hanging around outside. They're divided into their cliques: the jocks, the cheerleaders, the band kids carrying instruments, the brains in their glasses with their textbooks and Blackberries, the stoners off to one side, oblivious to everyone else. One kid, gangly with thick glasses, stands alone. He's wearing a black NASA t shirt and jeans and can't weigh more than 100 pounds. He has a handheld telescope, and he is scanning the sky, which is mostly obscured by the clouds. I notice a girl taking pictures, moving easily from one group to the next. She's shockingly beautiful with straight blonde hair past her shoulders, ivory skin, high cheekbones, and soft blue eyes. Everyone seems to know her and says hello to her, and no one objects to her taking photos. She sees me, smiles, and waves. I wonder why, and in turn, to see if someone else is behind me. There are two kids discussing math homework, but no one else. I turn back around, and the girl walks towards me, smiling. I've never seen a girl so good looking, much less spoken to one, and I've definitely never had one wave and smile to me as if we were friends. I'm immediately nervous, and I start blushing, but I'm also suspicious, as I've been trained to be. As she nears me, hi, Stella, how are you? I guess Stella's going to join us tonight. Where were we, Stella Bell? Let's see. As she nears me, she lifts the camera and she starts snapping pictures. I raise my hand to block my face, and she lowers the camera and she smiles. Don't be shy. I'm not. Just to protect your lens. My face might break it. What's the matter, Stella? She laughs. With that scowl, it might. Try smiling. I smile slightly. I'm so nervous, I feel like I'm going to explode. I can feel my neck burning. My hands are getting warm. That's not a real smile, she says teasingly. A smile involves showing your teeth. I smile broadly, and she takes pictures. I usually don't allow anyone to take my pictures. If it ended up in the internet or on the newspaper, it would make finding me much easier. The two times it happened, Henry was furious. He got hold of the pictures and he destroyed them. If he knew I was doing this now, I would be in huge trouble. But I can't help it though. This girl is so pretty and so charming, and she's taking my picture. As she's taking my picture, a dog comes running up to me. It's a beagle with tan floppy ears, with white legs and a white chest, a slender black body. He's thin and dirty as if he's been living on his own. He rubs against my legs, whines, and tries to get my attention. The girl thinks it's cute and has me kneel down so she can take a picture of me with the dog. As soon as she starts snapping shots, he backs away. Whenever she tries again, he moves farther away. She finally gives up and shoots a few more of me. The dog sits about 30 feet away watching us. Do you know that dog? She asks. Never seen him before. He sure likes you. You're John, right? She holds out her hand. Yeah, I say. How'd you know? I'm Sarah Hart. My mother is your real estate agent. She told me you'd be probably starting school today, and I should look out for you. You're the only new kid to show up today. I laugh. Yeah, I met your mom. She was nice. You gonna shake my hand? She's still holding out her hand. I smile and take it, and it's literally one of the best feelings that I've ever had. Wow, she says. What? Your hand feels hot. Really hot, like you have a fever or something. I don't think so. And she lets go. Maybe you're just warm-blooded. Yeah, maybe, I say. A bell rings in the distance, and Sarah tells me that it's the warning bell. We have 5 minutes to get to class. So we say goodbye, and I watch her walk away. A moment later, something hits me in the back of my elbow. I turn, and and a group of football players, all wearing Letterman jackets, sweep by me. One of them is glaring at me, and I realize that he hit me with his backpack as he walked past. I doubt it was an accident, and I start to follow them. I know that I'm not going to do anything, even though I could. I just don't like bullies. As I do, the kid in the NASA shirt walks next to me. I know you're new, so I'll fill you in, he says. On what? I ask. That's Mark James. He's a big deal around here. His dad is the town sheriff, and he's the star of the football team. He used to date Sarah when she was a cheerleader, but she quit cheerleading and she dumped him. He hasn't gotten over it. Over it. I wouldn't get involved if I were you. Thanks. The kid hurries away. I make my way to the principal's office so I can register for classes and get started. I turn and I look back to see if the dog is still around. And he is, sitting in the same spot, and he's watching me. The principal's name is Mr. Harris. He's fat and mostly bald, except for a few long hairs on the back and sides of his head. His belly reaches over his belt. His eyes are small and beady, set too close together. He grins at me from across the desk, and his smile seems to swallow his eyes. So you're a sophomore from Santa Fe, he asks. I nod, say yes, even though we've never been to Santa Fe or New Mexico for that matter. A simple lie to keep from being tracked. That explains the tan. What brings you to Ohio? My dad's job. Henry isn't my father, but I always say he is to allay suspicion. In truth, he is my keeper on what would be a better understood on English as, or on Earth, as my guardian. On Lorien, there are two types of citizens. Those who develop legacies or powers, which can be extremely varied. Anything from invisibility to the ability to read minds, from being able to fly or using natural forces like fire, wind, or lightning. Those with the legacies are called the Guard, and those without the legacies are called Sepan, or Keepers. I am a member of the Guard. Henry is a Sepan. Every guard is assigned a Sepan at an early age. Sepans help us understand our planet's history and develop our powers. The Sepan and the Guard, one group, run the planet, the other group defend it. Mr. Harris nods. And what does your dad do? Whoops, I skipped 2 pages. He's a writer. He wanted to live in a small, quiet town to finish what he's working on, I say, which is our standard cover story. Mr. Harris nods and he squints his eyes. You look like a strong man. Are you planning on playing sports here? I wish I could, but I have asthma, sir, I say, my usual excuse to avoid any situation that might betray my strength and my speed. I'm sorry to hear that. We're always looking for able athletes for our football team, he says, and he casts his eyes on the shelf on the wall, on top of which is a football trophy sits engraved with last year's dates. We won the Pioneer Conference, he says, and he beams with pride. He reaches out and he pulls 2 sheets of paper down from a filing cabinet beside his desk and he hands them to me. The first is my student schedule, with a few open slots. The second is a list of available electives. I choose classes and I fill them in. Then hand everything back. He gives me a sort of orientation, talking for what seems like hours, going over every page of the student manual with painstaking detail. One bell rings, then another. Then he finally finishes. He asks if I have any questions, and I say no. Excellent. There's half an hour left to second period, and you've chosen astronomy with Mr. Burton. She's a great teacher, one of our very, very best. She won an award from the state once, signed by the governor himself. Well, that's great, I say. Let me get a quick sip here. This might be a little embarrassing, but I got to do this. Alexa, turn on the living room. There we go. I needed a little bit more light. My dad gave me an Alexa with one of those things you plug in so you can control the lights. So anyways, I need a little bit more light, and I didn't want to disturb the princess here and get up and turn it on. Right? Right. Okay. So after Mr. Harris struggles to free himself from his chair, we leave his office and we walk down the hall. His shoes click upon the newly waxed floor. The air smells of fresh paint and cleaner. Lockers line the walls. Many are covered with banners supporting the football team. There can't be more than 20 classrooms in the whole building. I count them as we pass. Here we are, Mr. Harris says. He extends his hands and I shake it. Or he extends his hand and I shake it. We're happy to have you. I like to think of us as a close-knit family. I'm glad to welcome you to it. Thank you, sir, I say. Mr. Harris opens the door and he sticks his head in the classroom. Only then do I realize that I'm a little nervous, and a somewhat dizzy feeling is creeping in. My right leg is shaking. There are butterflies in the pit of my stomach, and I don't understand why. Surely it's not the prospect of walking into my first class. I've done it far too many times and still feel the effect of the nerves. I take a deep breath and I try to shake them away. Mrs. Burton, sorry to interrupt. Your new student is here. Oh, great. Send him in, she says in a high-pitched voice of enthusiasm. Mr. Harris opens the door and I walk through. The classroom is perfectly square, filled with 25 people, give or take, sitting at rectangular desks about the size of kitchen tables, 3 students to each, and all eyes are on me. I look back at them before looking at Mrs. Burton. She is somewhere around 60, wearing a pink wool sweater and red plastic glasses attached to a chain around her neck. She smiles widely, her hair graying and curly. My palms are sweaty and my face feels flushed. I hope it isn't red. Mr. Harris closes the door. And what's your name, she asks. I am unsettled mood and I almost say Daniel Jones. But I catch myself, I take a deep breath and I say John Smith. Great, and where are you from? I begin. Then I catch myself again before the word comes out. Santa Fe. Class, let's give him a big warm welcome. And everybody claps. Mrs. Burton motions for me to sit at an open seat in the middle of the room between 2 other students. I'm relieved she doesn't ask any more questions. She turns around to go to her desk, and I begin walking down the side of the aisle, straight towards Mark James, who's sitting at a table with Sarah Hart. As I pass, he sticks out his foot and he trips me. I lose my balance but stay upright. Snickers filter through the room, and Mrs. Burton whips around. What happened, she asks. I don't answer her and instead glare at Mark. Every school has one, a tough guy, a bully, whatever you want to call him. But never has one materialized this quickly. His hair is black, full of hair gel, carefully styled and goes in all directions. He has meticulously trimmed sideburns, stubble on his face, bushy eyebrows over a set of dark eyes. From his Letterman jacket, I can see that he's a senior, and his name is written in gold cursive stitching above the year. Our eyes stay locked, and the class emits a taunting groan. I look at my seat 3 desks away. Then I look back at Mark. I could literally break him in half if I wanted to. I could throw him into the next county. If he tried to run away and got into a car, I could outrun his car and put it in the top of a tree. But aside from being an extreme overreaction, Henry's words echo in my mind. Don't stand out or draw too much attention. I know that I should follow his advice and ignore what just happened, and I always have in the past. That is what we're good at, blending into an environment and living within its shadows. But I feel slightly off. I feel uneasy. And before I had a chance to think twice, the question is already asked. Did you want something? Mark looks away and glances around to the rest of the room, scoots his weight off his chair, then he looks back at me. What are you talking about? He asks. You stuck your foot out when I passed, and you bumped into me outside. I thought you might have wanted something. What's going on? Mrs. Burton asks behind me, and I look over my shoulder. Nothing, I say, and I turn back to Mark. Well? His hands tighten around his desk, but he remains silent. Our eyes stay locked until he sighs and he looks away. That's what I thought. I say down at him, and I continue walking. The other students aren't sure how to respond, and most of them are still staring when I take my seat between a redheaded girl with freckles and an overweight guy who looks at me with his mouth agape. Mrs. Burton stands at the head of the class. She seems a little flustered, but then shrugs it off and describes why there are rings around Saturn and how they're made mostly of ice particles and dust. After a while, I tune her out and I look at the other students, a whole group of new people that I'll have to try again to keep a distance from. It's always a fine line, having just enough interaction with them to remain mysterious without becoming strange and thus sticking out. I've already done a horrible job of that today. I take a deep breath and I slowly exhale. I still have butterflies in my stomach, still the nagging shake in my leg. My hands feel warmer. Mark James sits 3 tables in front of me. He turns once and he looks at me, then whispers something into Sarah's ear. She turns around. She seems cool, but the fact that she used to date him and is sitting with him makes me wonder. She gives me a warm smile, and I want to smile back, but I'm frozen. Mark again tries to whisper to her ear, but she shakes her head and pushes him away. My hearing is much better than human hearing, and I focus on it. But I'm so flustered by her smile that I don't. I wish I could have heard what was said. I open and I close my hands. My palms are sweaty and beginning to burn. Another deep breath. My vision is blurry. 5 minutes pass, then 10. Miss Burton is still talking, but I don't hear what she's saying. I squeeze my fists shut, then I reopen them. When I do, my breath catches in my throat. A slight glow is coming from underneath my right palm. I look down in it dumbfounded and amazed, and after a few seconds, the glow begins to brighten. I close my fists. My initial fear is that something else has happened to one of the others. But what could have happened? We can't be killed out of order. That is the way the charm works. But does that mean that some other charm can't befall them? Has somebody's right hand been cut off? I have no way of knowing. But if something had happened, I would have felt it, the scars on my ankles, and only then does it dawn on me. My first legacies must be forming. Uh-oh. So I pull my phone out of my bag and send Henry a text that says CMEE. Though I meant to type come. I'm too dizzy to send anything else. I close my fists and I place them in my lap. They're burning and they're shaking. I open my hands. My left palm is bright red. My right is still glowing. I glance at the clock on the wall and I see that class is almost over. If I can get out of here, I can find an empty room and call Henry and ask him what's going on. I start counting the seconds. 60, 59, 58. It feels like something is going to explode in my hands. I focus on the counting. 40, 39. They're tingling now, as though little needles are being stuck into my palms. 28, 27. I open my eyes and stare ahead, focusing on Sarah, with the hope that looking at her will distract me. 15, 14. Seeing her makes it worse. The needles feel like nails now, nails that have been put into a furnace and heated until they're glowing. 8, 7. The bell rings, and in an instant, I'm up and I'm out of the room, rushing past the other students. I'm feeling dizzy, unsteady on my feet. I continue down the hall, and I have no idea where to go. I can feel someone following me. I pull my schedule from my back pocket and check my locker number. As luck would have it, my locker is just to the right. I stop at it, and I lean my head against the metal door. I shake my head, realizing that in the rush to get out of the classroom, I left behind my bag with my phone in it, and then someone pushes me. "What's up, tough guy?" I stumble a few steps, look back, and Mark is standing there smiling at me. "Something wrong?" he asks. "No," I reply. My head is spinning, and I feel like I'm going to pass out. My hands are on fire. Whatever is happening couldn't be happening at a worse time. He pushes me again. "Not so tough without any teachers around, are you?" I'm too unbalanced to stay standing, and I trip over my own feet and I fall to the ground. Sarah steps in front of Mark. "Leave him alone," she says. "This has nothing to do with you," he says. "Right. You see a new kid talking to me and you immediately start a fight with him. This is just one example of why we aren't together anymore." I start to stand up. Sarah reaches down to help me. And as soon as she touches me, the pain in my hands flare up, and it feels like lightning strikes my head. I turn around and I start rushing away in the opposite direction from the astronomy classroom. I know that everyone will think I'm a coward for running, but I feel like I'm about to pass out. I thank Sarah and deal with Mark later. Right now, I just need to find a room with a lock on the door. I get to the end of the hall which intersects with the school's main entrance. I think back to Mr. Harris's orientation, which included where the various rooms were located in the school. If I remember correctly, the auditorium, band rooms, and art rooms are at the end of this hall. I run towards them as fast as I can in my current state. Behind me, I can hear Mark yelling to me and Sarah yelling at him. I open the first door I find and I shut it behind me. Thankfully, there is a lock, which I click into place. Your Alexa just went off, Sydney? That's funny. I'm in a dark room. Strips of negatives hang on drying lines. I collapse on the floor. My head spins and my hands are burning. Since first seeing the light, I have kept my hands clenched into fists. I look down at them now and I see my right hand is still glowing, pulsating. I start to panic. I sit on the floor, sweat stinging my eyes. Both hands are in terrible pain. I knew to expect my legacies, but I had no idea it would include this. I open my hands and my right palm is shining brightly, the light beginning to concentrate. My left is dimly flickering, the burning sensation almost unbearable. I wish Henry was here. I hope he's on his way. I close my eyes and I fold my arms across my body. I rock back and forth and on the floor. Everything inside of me is in pain. I don't know how much time is passing. 1 minute, 10 minutes. The bell rings, signaling the start of the next period. I can hear people talking outside the door, and the door shakes a couple times, but it's locked and nobody will be able to get in. I just keep rocking, eyes closed tightly. More knocks begin to fall on the door, muffled voices that I can't understand. I open my eyes and I can see the glow from my hands has lit the entire room. I squeeze my hands into fists and I try to stop the light, but it streams out between my fingers. Then the door really starts shaking. What will they think of the light in my hands? There is no hiding it. How can I explain it? John, open the door. It's me, a voice calls. Relief floods through me. It's Henry's voice, the only voice in the whole world that I want to hear. Whoa. Chapter 5. Well, that was a long chapter, much longer than the other ones. Let's read a little bit more. We got a little bit more time. So I crawl to the door and I unlock it. It swings open. Henry is covered in dirt, wearing gardening gloves as though he had been working outside in the house. I'm so happy to see him, and I have the urge to jump up and wrap my arms around him. And I try to, but I'm too busy and I fall back to the floor. Is everything okay in there? Asked Mr. Harris, who is standing behind Henry. Everything's fine. Just give me a minute, please, Henry says. Do I need to call an ambulance? No. The door shuts and Henry looks down at my hands. The light in the right one is shining brightly, though the left dimly flickers, as though trying to gain confidence in itself. Henry smiles widely, his face shining like a beacon. Ah, thank Lorian, he sighs. Then pulls a pair of leather gardening gloves from his back pocket. What dumb luck that I've been working in the yard. Put these on. I do, and they completely hide the light. Mr. Harris opens the door and he sticks his head through. Mr. Smith, is everything okay? Yes, everything is fine. Just give us 30 seconds, Henry says, and looks back at me. Your principal meddles. Meddles. I take a deep breath and I exhale. I understand what is happening. But why this? Your first legacy. I know that, but why the lights? We'll talk about it in the truck. Can you walk? I think so. He helps me up, but I am unsteady, still shaking. I grab a hold of his forearm for support. I have to get my bag before we leave, what I say. Where is it? I left it in the classroom. What number? 17. Let's go and get you to the truck, and I'll go get it. I drape my right arm over the shoulder and he supports my weight by putting his left arm around my waist. Even though the second bell is rung, I can hear people in the hall. You need to walk as straight and as normal as you can. I take a deep breath and I try to gather any bit of strength that I might have on reserve to tackle the long walk out of the school. Let's do this, I say. I wipe the sweat from my forehead and follow Henry out of the dark room. Mr. Harris is still in the hallway. Just a bad case of asthma, Henry tells him, and he walks past. A crowd of 20 or so people are still in the hallway, and most of them are wearing cameras around their necks, waiting to get into the darkroom for photography class. Thankfully, Sarah isn't among them. I walk as steadily, as steadily as I can, one foot in front of the other. The school's exit is 100 feet away. That is a lot of steps, and people are whispering. What a freak. Does he even go to school here? I hope so. He's cute. What do you think he was doing in the darkroom to make his face so red? I hear, and everyone laughs. Just like we can focus our hearing, we can close it. Which helps when you're trying to concentrate amidst noise and confusion. So I shut off the noise and I follow closely behind Henry. Each step feels like 10, but finally we reach the door. Henry holds it open for me, and I try to walk on my own to his truck, which is parked up front. For the last 20 steps, I drape my arm around his shoulders again. He opens the truck door, and I scoot in. You said 17. Yes. You should have kept it with you. It's the little mistakes that lead to big mistakes. We can't make any. I know. I'm sorry. He shuts the door and he walks back into the building. I hunch over the seat and I try to slow my breathing. I can still feel the sweat on my forehead. I sit up and I flip down the sun visor so I can look into the mirror. My face is redder than I thought. My eyes are a little watery, but through pain and exhaustion, I smile. Finally, I think, after years of waiting, after years of my only defense against Magadorians being intellect and stealth, my first legacy has arrived. Henry comes out of the school carrying my bag. He walks around the truck, opens the door, tosses my bag on the seat. Thank you, I say. No problem. When we're out in the lot, I remove the gloves and take a closer look at my hands. The light in my right hand is beginning to concentrate itself into a beam like a flashlight, only brighter. The burning is beginning to lessen. My left hand still flickers dimly. You should keep those on until we're home, Henry says. I put the gloves back on and I look over him. He is smiling proudly. Been a shit long wait, he says. Huh? I ask. He looks over. A shit long wait, he says again, for your legacies. I laugh. All of the things Henry has learned to master while on Earth, profanity is not one of them. A damn long wait, I correct him. Yeah, that's what I said. He turns down our road. So, what next? Does this mean I'll be able to shoot lasers from my hands or what? He grins. It's nice to think so, but no. Well, what am I going to be able to do with light? When I'm getting chased, am I going to be able to turn and flash it in their eyes? Like that's supposed to make them cower for me or something? Patience, he says. You aren't supposed to understand it yet. Let's just get home. Then I remember something that nearly makes me jump out of my seat. Does this mean we'll finally open the chest? He nods and smiles. Very soon. Hell yes, I say. The intricately carved wooden chest has haunted me my whole life. It's a brittle-looking box with the Lorik symbol on it, and on its side, Henry has remained completely secretive about it. He's never told me what's in it, and it's impossible to open. I know because I've tried more times than I can count, never with any luck. It's held shut with a padlock with no discernible slot for a key. When we get home, I can tell that Henry has been working. 3 chairs from the front porch have been cleared away, and all the windows are open. Inside, the sheets over the furniture have been removed. Some of the surface is wiped clean. I set my bag atop the table in the living room, and I open it. A wave of frustration passes over me. The son of a bitch, I say. What? My phone is missing. Where is it? I had a slight disagreement with this kid this morning. His name is Mark Janes. He probably took it. John, you were in school for an hour and a half. How in the hell did you have a disagreement already? You know better. It's high school, and I'm the new kid. It's easy. Henry removes his phone from his pocket and he dials the number. Then he snaps the phone shut. It's turned off, he says. Of course it is. He stares at me. What happened? He asks in a voice of recognition, the voice he uses when pondering another move. Nothing, just a stupid argument. I probably dropped it on the floor when I put it into my bag. I say, even though I know I didn't. I wasn't in the best frame of mind. It's probably waiting for me in Lost and Found. He looks around the house and sighs. Did anyone see your hands? I look at him. His eyes are red, even more bloodshot than they were when he dropped me off. His hair is tousled, and he has a slumped look as though he's about to collapse into exhaustion at any moment. He has slept in Florida. He last slept in Florida 2 days ago. I'm not sure how he is even still standing. Nobody saw me. You were in school for an hour and a half. Your first legacy developed. You were nearly in a fight and you left your bag in a classroom. That's not exactly blending in. It was nothing. Certainly not a big enough deal to move to Idaho or Kansas or wherever hell our next place is going to be. Henry narrows his eyes, pondering what he just witnessed and trying to decide whether it's enough to justify leaving. Now, it's not the time to be careless, he says. There are arguments in every single school every day, I promise you. They aren't going to track us because some bully messed with the new kid. The new kid's hands don't light up in every school. I sigh. Henry, you look like you're about to die. Take a nap. We can decide after you've had some sleep. We have a lot to talk about. I never have seen you this tired before. Sleep a few hours. We'll talk later. He nods. A nap would probably do me some good. Oh, 2 pages and then the chapter's finished. Let's do it. Henry goes into the bedroom and he closes the door. I walk outside. I pace around the yard for a bit. The sun is behind the trees with a cool wind blowing. The gloves are still on my hands, and I take them off and I tuck them into my back pocket. My hands are the same as before, truth be told. One half of me is thrilled that my first legacy has finally arrived after so many years of impatiently waiting. The other half of me is crushed. Our constant moving has worn me down, and now it'll be impossible for me to blend in or stay in one place for any period of time. It'll be impossible for me to make friends or feel like I fit in. I'm sick of the fake names and the lies. I'm sick of always looking over my shoulder to see if I'm being followed. I reach down and I feel the 3 scars on my right ankle. 3 circles that represent the 3 dead. We are bound to each other by more than mere race. As I feel the scars, I try to imagine who they were. Whether they were boys or girls, whether they were living, where they were living, how old they were when they died. I try to remember other kids in the ship with me and give them each numbers. I think about what it would be like to meet them and hang out with them, what it might have been like if we were still on Lorien, what it might be like if the fate of our entire race wasn't dependent on the survival of so few of us, what it might be like if we weren't all facing death at the hands of our enemies. It's terrifying to know that I'm next, but we've stayed ahead of them by moving. It's terrifying to know that I'm next, but we've stayed ahead of them by moving, by running. Even though I'm sick of running, I know it's the only reason we're still alive. If we stop, they'll find us. And now that I'm next in line, they have undoubtedly stepped up the search. Surely they must know we are growing stronger, coming into our legacies. And then there is the other ankle and the scar to be found there, formed when the Loric charm was cast in those precious moments before leaving Lorien. It is the brand that binds us all together. Whoa! We are cranking. We're already on page 49, 2 nights, and we're on page 49, peeps. That's pretty awesome. Those chapters were a little longer, but that's okay. right? No big deal. So, John Smith, right? You guys are getting all this. So, these kids who are the guard, right? They had to leave this planet. They were driven off their planet. The CPANs, or I think it's CPANs, are the people that are protecting them, and it's their teachers, it's their guardians. So the first three have died in order, and now it's John Smith. Who's next? But now his powers are starting to form, and his hands are glowing. So, I think it's for him or for these race of people. It's probably part of what is, I guess kind of like puberty, right? For them, it's their race of people. This is when they start to enter into adulthood by getting these powers. I think it's kind of cool how the the planet that these talked about. He said, well, there are the people that have these powers, and they're the ones that ultimately defend the planet, and then there's the other people that are like their teachers, and those are the people that run the planet. So cool stuff, right? Cool stuff so far. All right. Well, let's get into the news, my friend. So I think we've got some really good news here. We've got some odd news, but we've got some good news. So today in New York, 100 and, or I should say in the last 24 hours, 106 New Yorkers passed away. Now that's horrible, right? 106 New Yorkers have died. However, that is the lowest number in 2 months. So March 28th was the last time that we saw so few of people pass away in our state. So again, horrible, but it's a good sign. Things are definitely heading in the right direction. So I don't know if you guys saw this, but an email came out from the superintendent today. It came out to, I believe, all the teachers, all the students, all of the parents, that the governor has asked for public input on reopening for the fall. So, I think that the governor is trying to gauge where people are and how people are feeling. And, to tell you the truth, I think it's one of those like, the chicken and the egg scenario. I'd love to be able to tell you where I am, but can you tell me where I'm going to be in a month? Right? And nobody can do that. I mean, I can't tell you what's going to happen to anybody in a week. Things could be totally and completely different. So, I think probably what the governor is going to hear a lot of is we need to get back to work. And for us to get back to work, our children, need to be in school, especially, our younger children. I mean, my sons are 13 and 16, right? If they were sick, I have no problem with them staying home sick. I might bring the Xbox controllers to work with me or hide them or something or lock them in a safe. But, you guys know what I mean. You're at that age where if you're sick, you can stay home. But, you can't leave a third grader home for weeks at a time, right? You just can't do that. So, I know that there have been ideas floated around too about, without a doubt, getting the elementary school kids back. However, we got to keep those kids spread out, right? I mean, like elementary kids are wiping their boogers and, snotting and sneezing and whatever over everybody, right? So, the protocols for those kids have got to be put in place. And it's kind of like one of those things where, you got to drop the hammer. You can't, you can't be like, well, it's okay if little Jimmy and Johnny are, but no, right? No way, no bueno, as they say, right? When we go back, there can't be touching and bromances and let me do your hair and let's shove each other around and all this crap. No, it's got to be stay away from one another. And I think that's going to be extremely difficult for us to do with the younger kids. So spreading them out, but how do we do that, right? Do we put a second floor on Brought and Pinewood in 3 months? No. So I don't know. I heard that there's a school district, and I don't remember what school district that is, but what they're talking about. Excuse me. I think it's one of the school districts up by Lake George. Here's what they're talking about. High schoolers are going to distance learn in the fall, not for the whole year. So they're going to distance learn in September. And what they're going to do is they're going to take the little kiddies and they're going to spread them out. So take your elementary school, take your middle school, take your high school. Now spread all of those little kiddies out all over the district so that you don't have 27 kids in one classroom, which is what we have, right? Our kindergartens and Mahonison, our grade schools, the classrooms are packed. So this is not a Mahonison plan, but I know one of the school districts up north, closer to Lake George, this is what they're talking about doing. I don't know if that's feasible. First of all, think about, when you spread out the kids and you only, let's say, have 10 in a class, well, that means you got to hire more teachers, right? So think about the amount of money. You'd have to double the amount of elementary school teachers. That's a lot of money, my friends. And there aren't that many teachers out there that are available. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what our plan is going to be, but the governor has officially reached out to everybody. And if you go to your Mahonison email, and maybe it's just people that are signed up for the SNN, but there's a link and you go there and you put in your input. So we'll see what happens. So what else do we have from the governor? Western New York, ready to go. Capital District, darn close. So things are moving and grooving. Okay, good. Now this is something that I've been thinking about this for the past few days. The number of shootings in the Capital District, the crime in the Capital District has really taken off. And, I've been thinking about myself and I'm thinking about it. I've been like, Mr. Martin, are you just watching the news more? And I'm not. I watch the news and I pay attention to the news. Usually when I'm in school, I read more news because I usually try to grab one of the newspapers in the library and skim through it at least. And it just seems to me like crime is really starting to ratchet up. All these animal abuse cases and shootings and scams and all this stuff. And I'm like, people, what's your problem? We're going through one day. This is going to be in the history books, right? What we're going through right now is going to be in the history books. And instead of coming together and trying to help each other through it, you're acting like a bunch of a-holes. And is there any more of a selfish act that you can undertake at this time? It's like, come on, So I don't know. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but I certainly have seen it. Okay. So, so in New York State today, a banning officially went into place on all flavored e-cigarettes. So I know this has kind of gone back and forth, and I believe now a full-on official ban is in place. I believe you can still get your regular vapes and your regular e-cigarettes, but all flavored ones, zoop, are banned. Today how are we doing on time? We're doing okay. So today there was a little bit of an early rebound in the stock market. There has been a lot of talk about some. We don't have a vaccine, but there are some organizations that believe that they are getting close to a vaccine, and they're starting to see some really good results. So as a result, investors in the stock market are saying, okay, well, hey, if we're going to start getting the economy rolling again, if things are going to start heading in the right direction again, then all right, maybe we'll start buying some stock and things are starting to, move in the right direction. And I guess the last 2 weeks of the stock market are the two worst weeks since the recession in 2008. So, moving in the right direction. What did I miss here? So part of the CARES Act, part of the stimulus plan was this, and I don't think we talked about this. When you go to college, my friends, and you take out student loans, right? You get what are called your subsidized loans and your unsubsidized loans. So your subsidized loans, basically how that works is that while you are in college, you do not have to pay the loans back. Well, but the thing is somebody, right? Somebody loans you that money, but the subsidized loans, if I remember correctly, the government is helping out, and they are kind of paying the interest, I guess, on the loan. Not I guess, but that's how they used to work. The government's paying the interest on the loans while you're in school so that you don't have to pay that back. Then when you graduate from college, I don't know what it is now. When I graduated from college, you had 3 months. 3 months after graduation, you had to start paying your loans back. So if you don't pay your loans back, the government, well, first of all, if you were to find yourself in dire straits, like, hey, I don't have a job, those Stafford loans have deferments. And I'll be honest with you, I had to use deferments before. I used deferments for 6 months when my first son was born. We were a little bit worried about money. Both of our careers had just kind of been rolling, and my wife at the time, she wanted to take 6 months off to be at home with the kids. So both kids. But so what happens is with your loans, you have deferment, and you get 24 months of deferments. So I used 6 months, which meant that I still had 18 months left. But during that time, you don't have to pay your loans. So you can do that, okay? The other thing that you can do is you can just go, oh, hell with it, I'm not going to pay my loans, which is not a good idea. Because when you don't pay your loans, the government, because they are government subsidized loans, they call your employer and they say, hey, St. Peter's Hospital, before you give so-and-so a check, you're going to deduct $200 out of that check and send it to us because they're not making their student loan payments. And that is called garnishing your wages. So, and funny enough, this is something that, I'll get back to that in a minute. I'll tell you a funny story in a minute. So, what happens is a part of the CARE Act, this big stimulus plan, is that the government said, well, hey, listen, college students or recent college graduates, we are going to suspend your student loan payments, I think, until September 30th. So if you find yourself out of work, if you find yourself in hard times, don't worry about it. You don't have to pay your loans. We're not going to garnish your wages. All is good. So apparently, Betsy Davos, who is the Secretary of Education, the federal Secretary of Education, who, by the way, has no background in education, yet she was confirmed by the Senate as the Secretary of Education. She just ordered 54,000 people to have their paychecks garnished because they weren't paying their student loans. I don't know what happened there. So now someone has filed a class action lawsuit against her. Hey, this act of Congress signed by the president said this, and you are now in violation of it. So I'm not too sure how this happened. I'm kind of, my mind is kind of just like, wait a minute. This is all the federal government here, and how are they not talking to one another about this? So I'm hoping that it's going to get corrected. But anyway, so for you guys that are headed off to college, I'm going to give you a little bit of advice on things. Not only when it comes to your college loans, but it can also happen. I don't think I've ever had it happen with. Did I ever? I don't think I ever had it happen with my car loan, but interestingly, I had it happen with my mortgage. So sometimes what happens is banks will sell your loans, and typically, that's kind of a good sign for you, right? Because banks are going to go, hey, listen, Sally has made every single payment in the last 7 years. And Sally has been not only made her payment, she's paying early. So you're a good person. You're a good person to lend money to. So what will happen is another bank will buy your loans because you're a good investment. So I think it was like my third or fourth year working for Sienna, I got a call from the human resource department. And the lady said, hey, Mal, listen, we just got a notice that we need to garnish your wages. And I said, what are you talking about? She said, well, we got a notice from so-and-so, or the federal government, that you haven't been paying your loans through Sallie Mae, and we have to garnish your wages. And I went, whoa. I went, and it's funny because the next day I came back and I said, I don't have student loans through Sallie Mae. What they used to do is they used to send you a booklet, and you would I'll rip off September, which had your payment. You write your check, you mail it in. Then you'd rip off October, and October, you'd write the check and you'd mail it in. And I went into the human resource person and I said, I don't have loans through Sallie Mae. I had loans through some other bank. And she said, well, we got this notification. And whoa. So I called up Sallie Mae and they said, oh yeah, we bought your loans. And I said, well, when did you buy my loans? And they said, we bought your loans 6 months ago. And I said, all right, well, number one, you never sent me the loan booklet. And number two, I've been sending checks every month to my other, the bank, the other bank, and they've been cashing the checks. So, there's clearly a problem. So it took like a week or two for it to get cleared up. But, that's one of those things that happens. And again, I've owned my house for a year, and I got a thing in the mail a couple weeks ago. So and so has purchased your mortgage, and I got a better rate, and my mortgage payment went down. So I was like, okay, well, there you go. But these things happen, and it's again, I've always kind of looked at it as a good thing. It means that you're an attractive person to banks. You use your credit well. You've got a good credit rating. And it's funny because when I got divorced a couple years ago, my ex-wife, she had handled all of our money. She had done everything. And then when I went to apply for a mortgage last year, the guy said to me, he said, well, what's your credit rating? And I said to him, I said, gonna be honest with you, I have no idea, because I hadn't taken out a loan on my own in a very long time. And so I said, I don't know. I don't know what it is. And it was so he did it. And I said, listen, in 4 years of being alone, I hadn't, on my own, I hadn't missed a payment on anything. I hadn't paid anything late. We never paid anything late, regardless. So I got the score back, and he was like, man, you got a pretty good credit score. And I was like, well, there you go. And that's, one of the reasons why I think, and actually that's a funny story too. I had my student loan, they had split it. What actually happened was the bank sold like 2/3 of it to one place and 1/3 of it to another place. Right. And I'm like, oh my God, this was years ago. So I'm paying it off, and I'm paying it off, and I'm paying it off. And then I got to the one loan. I had 3 payments left. 3 payments. And I got a letter in the mail. We just sold your loan. So I'm like, 3 payments. And it was like $89. I'm like, so with 3 payments left, you sold my loan. Okay. So I had to set up another online account, and I got annoyed, and I just paid the last 3 payments like all in one. And then the other loan, which I think I still had like 7 payments left, that got sold too. And I'm like, man, it's just, I don't know. That's a racket, and you got to be careful. You got to be careful with that stuff. You really do. Okay. I don't know if I have anything else in the news. No, I don't think that's it. That's it. Capital Region very close to reopening. All right. So how we doing on time? We're a little late, but we're fine. So on this day, my friends, in 1860, I've got some serious hair going today. Abraham Lincoln becomes the first Republican nominee for the presidency. He, on this day, is given the nomination by the Republican Party. I'm sorry, he's the first Republican to win the nomination. In 1896, now this was really interesting. If you guys remember yesterday, we talked about yesterday was the anniversary of Brown v. Board of Education. What court case did Brown v. Board of Education overturn? That's right. You knew it. Plessy v. Ferguson. You guys knew it right away. Plessy v. Ferguson, which established separate but equal, right? Homer Plessy is 1/8 African American, and he is told that he can't ride on a train, a car of a train, because he is African American. He has to stay on another train, and this is down in Louisiana. And he is required, or he sues his way to the Supreme Court, saying, This is BS. This is going to create an inferiority complex in African Americans. And, the Supreme Court goes, yeah, well, at least at the time in 1896, they say, well, you're still going to be able to ride a train. So separate accommodations, as long as they're equal, that's fine. Separate, separate but equal is okay. So, that stays into effect for 58 years and then is overturned. But it's interesting that yesterday was the anniversary of Brown. Today is the anniversary of Plessing. So it was almost exactly 58 years to the day. All right, on this day in 1917, the Selective Service Act is passed. And for all of you young men out there, right, within a month of your 18th birthday, you have to register for the Selective Service, drafted into military service. I believe it's from 18 to 35 is the cutoff. And both President Obama and the Donald have said that if Congress amended the Selective Service Act to include women in that they would both sign that bill into law and sign that amendment to the Selective Service Act. So, maybe it is time that women have to register for the draft, just as men have to register for the draft. And I think that there's a compelling argument that, for equality, if women truly want equality in everything, well, just as men have to, go to a war if a draft was ever instituted, then shouldn't women also be drafted into service to defend our country? I think it's an interesting argument. On this day in 1980, and I remember this day, though I was a wee lad, I was 8 years old. Mount St. Helens explodes, which is out in, what do they call it? The Cascade Mountains, right? Out in Washington State. 57 people die, and 210 miles, 210 square miles of wilderness, boom, are just blasted from this volcano erupting. And one of the things I remember is in science class when I was in high school, and no, I was not in high school when I was 8 years old, but what I remember learning when I was taking earth science, we were learning about the wind patterns and all that kind of stuff, that it was not long after the explosion at Mount St. Helens that particles from the volcano out in Washington State, because of the weather patterns, had actually traveled from Washington State and landed, and they were collected at Albany Airport. It wasn't an international airport at the time, but all airports have weather services, and they look for things like that, and they saw the particles in the air from Mount St. Helens. So on this day, and we're going to talk about this in probably the last week of school, a huge student protest takes place in China in 1989. And on this day, over 1 million Chinese, mostly students, college age students, enter Tiananmen Square. And it will be a few weeks later, I want to say it's July 2nd or July 3rd, that the Chinese military actually ends up opening up fire and killing quite a few people that are a part of this protest. And then last but not least, today, on this day in 2012, the one, the only, the Facebook has its initial public offering. It's IPO. So it started selling stock. And in today, what did I say? 2012. Yes, 16 billion is what the company brought in one day. So that is still to this date the highest IPO, initial public offering of stock for any tech company. Think about that. $16 billion. A company sells stock, we talked about this, so that they can take that money, that they can invest, they use it to grow their company. And in one day, Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook got $16 billion to play with. Not bad, peeps, right? Not bad. Not bad. So anyway, things are getting better, guys. I think the numbers are very encouraging from our state. I think other states are not looking so hot right now. And again, we kind of knew that because we got hit hard and then things started to travel across the country. So there are other states that are in much worse shape than we are, and are smaller than us. But we're headed in a good direction, and I really feel that I think September might look a little different for us, but I think we're going to see each other, and it's going to be something regular and something normal, and we're going to make it through. So I've had friends that and I've known people that have gotten corona, or at least acquaintances of mine that have had corona, or family members, and that have passed away. And I've had a very good friend of mine. He, his wife, his daughter, his son, his daughter's boyfriend all got it, and they all made it through. So, I think we're getting there. I know we're getting there. And we're having a ton of fun. I wonder if we're reading this book so flippin' fast, I wonder if we could get through 2 of them. Maybe we could I don't want to promise that. I know I saw the last day of school. I don't know if you guys saw that, but now they're saying the last day of school is June 17th, not June 12th. So I don't know what that means for us, but that gives us some time to do some good reading. We'll definitely get through this book with no problem. Maybe, we'll do something else too. I don't know if we can make it through 2 full of these books, but maybe we will. I don't have a problem reading into the summer. I may not be able to read 6 nights a week, though. I might have to cut it down to like 5 nights a week, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. But anyways, my friends, tomorrow, for those of you in U.S. history, wow, that was loud. 2 p.m., I will send out the Google Meet. We are doing our civil rights special program. We have Reggie Harris, civil rights musical artist, one of the greatest musical artists, most powerful musical artists that I've ever seen live. And considering the fact that I have worked hundreds of concerts at the Egg and at the Palace and at other musical venues when I was working in theater world, one of the ways we would make extra money is not only build theater shows, but because we knew the lighting and the sound and that kind of stuff, we would work at different places. So, I mean, literally, I've worked hundreds and hundreds of concerts. I've seen, I don't know how many concerts just on my own, probably 100 plus on my own. This guy is amazing. And he's going to be there singing for us tomorrow, sharing his stories about civil rights. Nell Stokes, a civil rights activist. She took place in the Montgomery bus boycott. She's going to be there talking to you guys about her experience. She was there. And then we have Dr. Stephen Gottlieb, who is a civil rights lawyer. This guy is a brainiac on civil rights law. There probably aren't as many people in the country as knowledgeable for in civil rights law as this guy. And I'm not going to lie to you, he's a little dry. He's not as animated as Mr. Martin, but he knows his stuff. So we've got a great program for you guys tomorrow, starting at 2:00. And when I get the link tomorrow morning, I will send it out to you guys. I haven't gotten it yet. Mrs. Sparlin is putting all that together, and she's going to get it out to us. So I'm looking forward to it. Reggie is so powerful, and he is so honest. I think he is one of the most honest human beings I've ever met in my life, and he is so like raw, honest, and caring, and just super powerful. You might not be a fan of folk music, but I'm telling you, his songs, like, they just boom, they just get you on the inside. So don't miss it. Don't miss it, guys. Be there. If I got to wash my poodle. No, your poodle can go another hour and a half. It's going to be an hour and a half program that we're doing for you. Tell the dog to take a bath on its own and come and hang out with us at 2 p.m. Okay? So be good. Run the marathon. Don't run the sprint. We're going to get there. We're going to get there. We are getting there. Okay? Take your time. Tomorrow we'll get back into our book. We'll see what happens with John Smith, and he's got his glowing hands. So I'm wondering, I kind of know. But what do you guys think these glowing hands are? What's the what's the power, that's kind of coming out of them? So I think we'll figure that out tomorrow night. And I look forward to seeing you. Tomorrow's Tuesday, and I think I told you guys, and man, I was disappointed. Last Monday I didn't want to do it, but I switched to Spectrum, and I called, and they had a thing for teachers, 2 free months of Spectrum. So that was last Monday. That was a week ago. And the guy said, "Oh, you don't have to pay anything for 2 months. All we need is $9.99, and we're going to ship you the new modem in 2 days, 2 to 3 days." And I was like, "Okay, no problem. That's a no-brainer." So here it is a week later, and I still don't have the modem. And I got an email from them. I don't know if it came late last night or early this morning that it's been delayed. So I forgot to call them today. But, when you pay for 2 to 3 days shipping, guess what? I expect it in 2 to 3 days. And if they can't do it, then that's fine. But tell me. But I was hoping to have my high-speed internet. But I think actually the last few nights we've been kind of doing okay. But maybe, I don't know, maybe I'll get it tomorrow. But hopefully we'll get that high-speed internet and things will be, totally cleaned up. We won't have any problems. But anywho, my friends, be good. It's been fun reading with you guys. I hope you're enjoying the new book. And hey, Alexa, turn off the living room. Have a good night, guys.